Like, my recovery brought me to a higher power of my understanding. And for that, I owe it everything. So I owe that back to these programs every day. I understand what fanatical religious people who have had these experiences, what they're talking about, because I've had those visceral experiences. I just use different words for it.
Welcome to Psychedelics in Recovery Integration Radio, a safe space where PIR, also known as Persons in Recovery, come and share their experience, strengths, and hope with us, with you. My name is Anne. I'm a person in recovery and your host today. This radio is part of PIR's ongoing effort to carry the message of recovery to those still suffering. In alignment with the 12 traditions that guide our fellowship, this program will not be funded by outside contributions. PIR, as an organization, has no opinion on outside issues. While we discuss plant medicine and psychedelics in this episode, PIR does not promote or endorse their use. The spiritual intention of PIR and of this broadcast is to create diverse, safe, and sacred spaces for all who wish to recover, always striving for humility over hubris and principles before personalities. Whether you're new to the idea of integrating psychedelics or plant medicine in your recovery process, new to recovery, or a long-time member of the fellowship, our aim is to create a space of curiosity, connection, and hope. In this first series, entitled Journeys of Healing, we explore the intersection of recovery and the transformative potential of psychedelic medicine through some of our members' experience. So settle in, open your mind, and let's walk this path together. This is Integration Radio. And today gives me great pleasure to introduce Ian, who's come to share his experience, strengths, and hope with us. Hello, Ian. Thank you for being here.
Hi, Anne. Thanks for having me.
How are you?
I'm good. I was just saying it's weird to be on the other side of the microphone.
Yes, because for our listener, Ian has been editing the first 6 episodes of the podcast and is our editor-in-chief. But we now have a team of 3 helping out, which is great. And that's what service should be like, shared.
Absolutely.
In a committee. And it's fun.
Yeah, whole production team now.
You're a production team, exactly. All this in the space of what, a few months. So thank you very much for your contribution and for your service to this podcast. And now, on the other side, it's going to be your opportunity to tell us your story. And firstly, how did you get into recovery? When was it? What did it look like? Which fellowship, if any? Can you tell us a bit about how you got here?
Good question. So I guess my story would start in like adolescence. That's when my use started, innocently enough at the beginning, and then a little more, abusive and intense as time went on. So yeah, I drank pretty heavily through most of my adolescence, which I didn't realize was abnormal until probably like my middle 20s. Yeah, and I got sober in Alcoholics Anonymous in 2015. January 21st of 2015 is my date. And it was pretty, people, if you found your way here, you already know what the story is. Like, there's no dorks here. Like, people don't just make it to recovery by not experiencing the same things that all of us have experienced, some people.
You mean a rock bottom?
Yeah, everybody has experienced their version of a rock bottom, and everybody's suffering is individual to them, and it's their truth, and I think that it needs to be respected.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I found mine in January of 2015, and the way that looked for me was just like I had sufficiently hurt all the people around me that I loved to a degree that was irrevocable. I thought at that point, I realized I had a moment of clarity after I had hurt one of my best friends bad enough that I had the potential to destroy every relationship that I cared about and self-destruct. I could destroy myself whenever whenever the alcohol decided that it was ready for that. So yeah, that was what put me on the path. So I spent a long time. I still attend Alcoholics Anonymous meetings, and I still will continue to do that. It's given me everything. I mean, my recovery has given me everything. And that's why I treat it with the utmost respect. And that's why I treat these medicines and modalities in this program with just as much respect as I've treated my recovery, because it's the most important aspect in my life. Like, my recovery brought me to a higher power of my understanding. And for that, I owe it everything. So I owe that back to these programs every day.
So your story is because you're young and you're 11 years sober.
Yeah.
So can you tell me a bit more about your rock bottom, what it looked like? And from what you're saying, you've never relapsed.
No, I haven't experienced a relapse.
That's extraordinary.
Yeah, it is, especially like a lot of the people I got sober with in 2015 started relapsing pretty quickly, and a lot of them didn't make it, which is really sad. I think about them all the time.
No, I'm sorry to hear.
Thanks. Yeah. And I try to keep, I've fallen off doing it because it's macabre, but I have a lot of their names in the back of my big book. So just to remember like what they gave me, what I was able to give them, and why I'm still here doing what I'm doing. And yeah, so like the way it looked for me was just a lot of, like, I've played in bands my whole life, and always romanticized that idea of like tragic artist stuff, and which I feel totally different about now as a relatively fully grown person. But that contributed a lot to like my use, because the people around me, especially in adolescence, it was something that we romanticized. So it's something that once it became accessible, drugs and alcohol were relatively just available and there to be explored. And then eventually what was recreation started to become abusive relationships with these substances. But alcohol is my primary drug of choice, if you will. And when I arrived like at the hospital to go to rehab, it was my first roommate was like, "What are you here for?" And I was like, "Booze." And he's like, "Yeah, no, but like, what are you really here for?" And I was like, "I'm a drunk. Like I need to get sober. I can't stop drinking." And he's like, "Dude, you are a dying breed. He's like, I've never even met like an alcoholic in one of these places. He's like, there's only heroin and fentanyl addicts anymore coming to these places." And I was like, that was baffling to me. So to like find my tribe at the hospital I was at even was kind of interesting. So a lot of the people that I was surrounded with were heroin addicts, which was interesting. I went on to sponsor a lot of heroin addicts, and it's difficult for me not having that experience, because I love these people dearly. I love junkies. I don't care who hears me say that, because they've carried my recovery so far. But in having like sponsorship with these people, it's hard because I don't experience some of the things they experience. And that's difficult and upsetting for me, because I want to be able to help more. But yeah, sorry, that's about them. More about me. Like, yeah, that's the way it looked like for me. Is alcohol became the center of my life pretty quickly. And after I drank myself out of a couple of jobs, I didn't know how to like acclimate to regular social. I think I was like socially maladjusted, from probably an early age. And from the first time that I experienced what alcohol had to offer, it gave me everything. It like turned on this thing in my brain where all of a sudden I was the person that I always thought that I was. And it was like the first time I was seeing myself, for all the potential that I had. And like the world was just as, romantic, I guess, in the classical sense, not in the love sense, like romantic and bright and vibrant as I thought it was. And like adventure was everywhere. And it was almost psychedelic, the way that I saw the world the first time that I had alcohol. And it quickly became like my my tool and my best friend. It like enabled me to speak the truth. It enabled me to um, put on the performance of the person that I thought I was, um, which it turned into like a you know I like to say I was an egomaniac with an inferiority complex. I
Yeah.
didn't
Like a lot of alcoholics. This
yeah,
is
yeah, I'm like dyed in the wool alcoholic. And it's a genetic predisposition to me too. Like my grandma refers to it as a family curse. And we continue to lose family members. Just lost another one, and lost my cousin, and nearly lost another cousin, lost my uncle uh recently. And uh it's and just like it's been a evil and corroding thread through the my like genetics. um but I feel fortunate to have it, because having alcoholism gives me the opportunity to recover, and recovery has given me a really good life, as crummy as things can get sometimes, or as dark or painful as things can be. Like I'm grateful to be alive, and my alcoholism has given me that. Like I've met people all over. Like if I hadn't been an alcoholic, I'd never make it to PIR. I just spent a month in San Diego with a fellow for like got to, basically be on vacation, have lunch with my friend twice a week, go to the beach, go surfing, and just like do like have the adventuresome life that I've always wanted to have. And that's like a gift of my recovery.
And tell me how many years into your recovery from alcoholism did you discover PIR or psychedelics? What came first?
I discovered, so I had always maintained, well, I don't know if you want to call it a reservation. At first, it really concerned me, as it should with anybody, dude. Like, we got to tread pretty lightly with this stuff, because alcohol is a subtle foe. And if that's your problem, like if you're listening to this and that's your problem, that is true. You have to maintain, diligence with recovery, uh, because I've seen it sneak up on people and they end up drunk and they didn't mean to. It just, the work fell by the wayside, or they just, things get crazy, and we reach for the tool that we know works. Um, so like, I don't get mad at those people or anything, because I get it. Like alcohol, like I said, offered me everything. That was my solution to everything until it took everything from me. But um, the way that I discovered PIR was as my pink cloud faded, and I had a long one. I mean, I had a really long pink cloud. I also did everything wrong in rehab. Like I watched Boogie Nights all the time, which is like not. That's, if anybody knows what that movie is, it's just like rampant drug use and alcoholism throughout the whole movie, and it's really glorified. But and like I got into a relationship right out of the hospital, and stayed in that relationship for 10 years, which is a whole other story that, like, you can call me and we can talk about it. But um I didn't do things, by the book by any means, and I still don't. But that's to say that somewhere around like the 3-year mark or 4-year mark, something was still like my anxiety had largely went away. My depression had largely escaped me, because I remember in my first leads telling people, like, I thought that I drink because of my depression. I thought I drank because of my anxiety. But then when I stopped drinking, those things like really did go away for a long time. But when they slowly started to come back and those clouds started to form again, I was like, well, I would say when they finish, I had an LSD experience when I was still drinking, when I was, I don't know, I was probably 22. Um, and it was profound enough that I was like, this is something I do want to revisit this at some point. This is, there's something here. And then when I got sober and experienced the pink cloud for the first time, that was a very psychedelic experience as well. And that kind of stuck with me, because it's the same kind of parts of your brain I feel like are lighting up. And then when the depression and anxiety kind of started to come back and become cumbersome again, uh, I thought that might be something that I would revisit to integrate and to work through what the actual root causes of that are. I'm a very inquisitive person, I'm realizing now, maybe to a fault. Especially lately, I've been trying to tackle some other things involving like obsessive compulsive disorder and ADHD that have just frustrated me for my whole life. Even though they're part of me, I'm trying to like accept them for what they are, but I'm also trying to navigate them in different ways than I have. And so through experiencing those two things, along with the anxiety that comes with those, I was curious if psychedelics would be a viable tool to work through those. So I always maintained through my recovery that if they ever finish, at the time I said, if they ever finish the Johns Hopkins studies, because that was like big news at the time when I was about 5 or 6 years sober. If they ever finish those, like I'm going to go take mushrooms at one of these colleges. Like I'm going to sign up to be a guinea pig. And I can't, like, I want to do that. And that some people, that freaks some people out, and other people were like open. They're like, yeah, I think I've seen that too. And I think that there is something to be offered there. There's something to be said about those treatments. But then what that looked like is eventually something in the universe told me that like this is the time, like you should think about this now. And it was right when covid had started. And I was trying to take walks every day and do those things. So I was doing a lot of like meditating and thinking, and eventually it just came to mind to like Google psychedelics in recovery, because I'd been talking enough about it and thinking enough about it. And I think I had enough respect at the time that I needed to find community to talk about this, because it was something that was rattling around in my mind. And I had talked about it in smaller AA meetings, that like, this is something that I'm thinking about because something has to change, and I'm living the principles, but these results are not exactly the promises have come true, but there's something lingering.
So you googled psychedelics in recovery. Presumably, you found the website.
Yeah. Was there a website there was like, a .net style Flash website is the way I see it in my head, even though that was only like 6 years ago. But the thing at the time was there was one meeting a week on Thursday nights, now known as the OG meeting. No, I'm sorry. It's even worse than that. There was one meeting once a month, and it was on rotating days. So it was not easy
to remember.
It was a very like, it's a clandestine. Yeah. It was a very like clandestine and kind of like, yeah, very kind of secretive thing. So I kept trying to hit these Thursday nights, but every week when it would rotate, I'd be like, oh, it's the next Thursday, or it was the last Thursday. I would just miss it. And then finally I got to one, and it was it was like the first time that I landed in an AA meeting, like my first AA meeting was when I was in the hospital still. And I was in detox, and they were like, if you're feeling well enough, you should go to a meeting. And I was like, what is a meeting? What are you talking about? And they're like, just go to that room over there. And I landed in an AA meeting, and everybody in there was like telling my story, talking about the things that they've experienced that I'd never heard anybody else talk about before. And it was a really, it was a spiritual experience, and part of my spiritual awakening to hear other people, talking about the real shit, for lack of a better, word. But, and when I made it to PIR, it was the same exact feeling as when I came into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, where it's like, these people have it. How can I be a part of this? How can I get what these people have? Because they had a light that I hadn't seen. Like, the people in my recovery groups are great people, but the solution for them was no longer working. There was something else needed there. And when I made it to PIR, I realized that this is going to be part of my story.
So let's pause here for a minute, please, and look at that first meeting, when you say it had the same effect as your first AA meeting. What did you feel the people in that meeting had that you wanted. Can you tell us a bit more about that first impression and describe the first meeting?
Yeah. So, man, it's hard because I want to say everybody who was there, but I can't spill the beans. But it's people, you'll still see some of these people in the rooms. Some of them have gone on to like greater things. Some of them have died, unfortunately. When you're in a fellowship long enough, like you do end up losing people. But here's like the thing is like they had in the big book literature, there's like Ebby comes to visit Bill, and he describes it as this, like, he's got this sparkle in his eye. He's like, there's something about him. It's changed, and that's what I saw is like, these people have seen something that I don't know what it is. And I don't know where they got it, but something about this group of people meeting and the things that they're talking about is special. And they have something that I need. It had like a almost magical quality about it, but I was still like a little, not hesitant, but like I was cautious because I was like, we're talking about real, like this is real deal stuff, dude. Like we're in recovery and talking about, medicines that can bring about like, euphoric experiences, or like it's intense. Like these are mind altering, conscious altering modalities, and spirits that, this is a whole other realm. But the respect I came in with is like, I want to further my recovery. Like, I didn't feel like I had graduated or anything like that. I didn't feel superior to anyone. I just felt like my path, there was more to be seen and more to be experienced. And like God had more to offer me if I was willing to take this path. And there was a healthy amount of fear too. Like we used to say in the rooms, you don't hear it as much, but there was a fellow who was an OG, one of the first 20 probably, that used to say, if you're not scared, if you're coming into this and you're not scared, then you don't have enough respect for the medicine that you're about to, commune with. Like there needs to be a healthy amount of respect, and that can involve fear.
Yeah, respect, reverence for the medicine.
Reverence.
Absolutely.
That's a great word. Yeah.
I think I had exactly the same feeling when I had the call from initially PIR, and I knew there was more out there. It was almost like it was a beautiful cathedral, but there was a side door I had not yet found to an even bigger realm beyond.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad you found it, and I'm so glad I found it.
Thanks.
And you found it. So it was the early days of PIR, only one meeting. So you're part of that club called the First 100.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say I'm part of the first 100 PIRs. Yeah. I think when I arrived, I think there was like maybe 40 or 50 active members. But you'd still there was usually 25 of us in a meeting, I think, on Zoom at that time. And so it was like the 3 co-founders, and then you'd have all these other people, and a lot of them are still, there's a good number of them still around.
And so what happened next? So you decide to come to this meeting more frequently, and then what happened next in your story?
Yeah. So since it was like COVID, there was, I started replacing, whatever my Thursday night was, with that meeting. And the parking lots at that point could go up to 5 hours, 4 or 5 hours. Wow. Because it's like, what else are we going to do? So there were a lot of ideas shared, and it became a really sacred space for a lot of people really quickly. And eventually it was like, you guys want to do this again, like next Thursday, instead of waiting for 3 Thursdays or 2 Thursdays or whatever it was at that point, because they started getting closer and closer together. And then it became Psychedelics in Recovery was every Thursday night. And that was my Thursday night meeting. And then gradually, I don't remember what transpired. There might have been 2 more. We might have started like a Sunday night or something like that at that point. But uh, one night after a meeting, somebody in the group called me and said, listen, I've been thinking about it for a long time. We should start a Monday night meeting. And I said, yeah, that's a great idea. So a fellow and I started, well, I should give him credit because it's his idea, but the integration group started that way. Or I'm sorry, the Entheon group started that way. So I was able to be the co-host of the Entheon, the chairperson for probably a year and a half when that started. And then, um, I remember ramen group starting, and that whole thing was amazing and magical. And I miss that person dearly. And yeah, and I think she deserves credit too because she was one of those like light beings that you only experience once in a lifetime. And like, sorry, but yeah, there was like there's when you're involved in a fellowship like this, um, even though it's like online most of the time, I've gotten the opportunity to like meet a lot of these people in person, and it's so. I mean, I've been around the world with this fellowship, um, and you meet these people, and they're just like these flashes of light or something. Like they're just miracles, and when they transcend and um, they're no longer like with us in this like physical plane, uh, it's difficult because they have such a big part of like you uh of your recovery and your experience in life, and like the things I get to do and the things I've seen and the experiences I've had because of PIR, like those are so much because of those people, and they like changed my perspective on life so much. um and it hurts to like not see their faces anymore or hear their voices on the meetings, but I still hear their voices in my head, and I think of them all the time. Like every time I attend the ramen group, I'm going to think of Ona, and I'm going to think of Mitch every time I go to the San Diego group.
Mhm.
Um,
They are frequently remembered in meetings, and
yeah,
actually, the convention, the PIR convention, taking place in Denver in October, we're looking for a theme, and the very strong possibility is that we are the medicine is the theme, and for me, that's
yeah,
Mitch,
that's Mitch.
that's and it would be, and we will of course remember all our friends who have transcended, as you said,
Yeah,
and passed on.
but yeah, I mean, wow, yeah. Sorry, I didn't know I was going to cry on the
No,
podcast. Uh,
that's speaking from the heart. That's what it's all
yeah,
about.
yeah. There's special beings in these rooms, and um, yeah, it's like because before that, I was scared when I came here. I was feeling really isolated and alone in my traditional groups, which is hard because these are the people that saved my life. Like Alcoholics Anonymous saved my life, and it kept me. Uh, I got to be of service, and I still am of service, and it taught me how to live. It gave me a new map for living that I didn't have before. So to walk away from that seemingly, or to like start to deviate from that path in any way, was terrifying.
Of course.
And the people in PIR told me that it was going to be okay, and that I was still in the right place, and that as long as I'm aligned with my higher power's will for me, and I'm trying to carry that out, and that I'm walking that path, and as long as these medicines are taking me closer to the spirit, not farther away, then I'm on the right path. And I've carried that with me.
Yeah. And so, what medicine did you choose initially for your first ceremony?
I was always like most curious about mushrooms.
Hmm.
From what I've like from everything, and I read a lot. Like I exhausted myself with reading. Uh, and I wanted to know where they came from. Why, like aliens? It's like, where did they come from? Why are they here? What are they trying to tell us? Who discovered this? And like, I wanted to have that respect and reverence, like we talked about, for this, um, for these entities prior to like entering that space. Um, I needed to treat this with the same like sacred respect and reverence that I treat Alcoholics Anonymous. And that's the attitude that I went in with. This wasn't like, I wasn't here to, I'm always here to party, right? Like, I mean, like in life, I'm here to have the best living experience that I can. But this wasn't like, I wasn't coming here to screw around. To, uh, I'm here as a seeker. And, I'm trying to get like as closely aligned with my higher power as I possibly can, and live in that spiritual solution all the time, and share that with other people, uh, who are willing to have it. Because sometimes, man, people will talk about stuff and it starts to freak me out. Like, I get that. Um, I had a real adversity I came here to recovery a pretty militant atheist, and I didn't know what I was going to do because the solution was spiritual. That freaked me out. It's the same way now. I'm having like, I mean, that was my problem then. That's a pretty big problem to have. Like, I was willing to accept a spiritual solution, but my idea at the time was, I'm going to fake this until I can figure out what's next. And eventually, through these spiritual experiences, like I tell people all the time, I've seen the face of God. You can't describe it to anybody. Like, the way that I found it is in the water, and putting myself in situations that, are not, I don't know if you'd call them safe or whatever, but I feel held enough and safe enough in the water, which used to be one of my biggest fears. I was terrified of the water, because I knew that it could just it's totally indifferent to my existence, or seemingly indifferent, I guess. And it was one of my biggest fears. I still don't care for deep water, but I try and get in the water every day, when the you know when it's not frozen where I live. And I try to commune with that spirit every day, because like that's source for me. That's the thing that I'm made of. That's what my family's been in this region for a really long time. So that was my first higher power. But I didn't have as much respect for it as when I would have those visceral experiences, communing with it directly and touching the source that I'm made of. Like, I'm so lucky to have that opportunity. I don't know what other people's experiences are like, but I don't want anybody else's experience. Like, I want my experience, and my God has given me everything. And I'm so grateful to it. And that's like the real shit, dude. Like, that's the real thing. Like, I understand what fanatical religious people who have had like these experiences, what they're talking about, because I've had those visceral experiences. I just use different words for it.
And you've had those experiences thanks to mushrooms, that conscious contact with higher power?
No, I've had those experiences thanks to water.
Thanks to water.
Yeah, thanks to water. It's like, it is extremely psychedelic, but I've had them, years out from the last time I had like a perceptible dose of mushrooms was, a year ago. And I still have experiences, usually in the water, swimming or surfing or whatever it is. But they're just as profound, as the experiences I've had with medicine. Experiences in ceremony, I should say. Ceremony, respect, and reverence, and all that stuff are like, those are the most important. Like, those are the some of the pillars of these experiences and these messages, that guide my recovery. It's hard to explain. It's so esoteric and can be abstract. But like, the medicine just shows us. It just turns on the little TV in your brain, or whatever analogy you like, and it can show you behind that curtain, very briefly. Um, but then you come back, right? And it's like, how do I integrate that into daily life? And that's been my practice lately, is like,
And that's my next question.
yeah. Oh,
How
great.
do you integrate? So perfect timing.
I don't have an answer. If anybody has an answer, how do you integrate? Because that's been well, I haven't made it so much my practice lately, but that's like the question that I'm at. That's the place that I'm at right now, because I want to spend the rest of my life just having peak experience. I want to spend the rest of my life, um, in sacred places, having peak experiences, and by peak experience, I just mean like riding waves, which is a peak experience. I mean meeting people that are like-minded, like me, meeting people that are different than me too, and spending time with different cultures, learning new languages, um, like just doing the traveling and making love and doing the things that we all think about as like a life well lived. Like, I just want my life to be a peak experience. But that can be kind of intrusive, because like now, like I've lived fairly free for the last few years. I had a lot of really, I mean, looking back on them now, it's not unfortunate things, but I've had things that have been very difficult to process and integrate in my life. I've had relationships fall apart that I thought were going to be forever, things that I had committed to my mind as being, um, irreplaceable and forever, and were going to just be part of my life. Like, that's not part of my life anymore. And I was like, okay, well, what am I going to do with this newfound freedom and all these things? And I'm trying to do it to the best of my ability and live the best life that I can live, and not forget that like I am a being of God, and I'm like here to experience life in its fullest. I'm just an avatar of God put here by the Spirit to experience creation. Like, that's my attitude, at least. And how can I do that when I'm driving down I-90 trying to it's when it's 8:30 in the morning and I'm trying to get to work by 8 a.m. Like, how do I integrate back into the monotony of like daily American life, or whatever it is, like into regular society, when you know, when you've been dragged across a reef in Nicaragua? Like, how do those two things correlate? How do you stand on top of a mountain with 30 other PIRs in California one day, and then the next week you have to go back to whatever your job is, like either like doing tech or pushing things through a warehouse or whatever that is? How do you integrate those peak experiences back into life? And do those like monotonous experiences of our everyday life make the peak experiences greater, or
Or period. They make them.
or do they make them? Yeah. Is this the fuel that, that creates that vehicle?
And I think it's all in the integration, and we talk a lot about this, and the it reminds me of a sentence I've heard many times in AA: if it's not practical, it's not spiritual. So it's taking the spiritual messages that we receive in ceremonies or in those peak event and moment, and remember them and infiltrate a little bit of it in our daily routine. But it's tough. It's tough, and for me, I like you. Usually, ceremony is once a year, but God, when it's that time of the year, I know it's coming. I know it's calling me, and I need that reset, and I really need that perspective, really, because that's what psychedelics do to me, particularly mushroom. They put me in a rocket, and they take me so far up, so that when I look down, I look at it from a great height, and a lot of things don't worry me anywhere near as much when I come back.
Yeah, absolutely. That's been the experience I had too. Like, I guess I haven't even talked about like my first mushroom experience or anything like that, but it was in recovery, and that was the experience that I had. Was like, it started out, I went to like, I wouldn't call it like a proper retreat, I guess. It was but it was a retreat. Like I did go somewhere, and there was facilitators. There were two facilitators. One was a monk, and one was the person who tends this land that I was on, and it's very sacred land. And it was advertised to me as a low dose experience, which appealed to me because it's like, okay, I'll dip my toe in and see what this is all about. But you had the option to have a booster every hour, half hour, something like that. So I started with the initial like low dose, which is just like low, and then and that was fine. It was kind of profound. I was really enjoying just being in nature and seeing the majesty of nature, especially in that part of the country. And then the option came for the next booster, and I was like, yeah, I'm feeling like I'm called to this. And then by the time the third one came around, and I had spent some time with the medicine, I was starting to feel comfortable, and I was going inward, and laying down, and uh, we had a sacred fire that was going to go for the remainder of the ceremony, so it was tended all night, and uh, things started to get I don't even remember what crossed my mind, but just something. I was like, man, I got to get outside. And so I walked outside of the temple, and I'm sitting on the hillside, and everything got really overwhelming for a second. I was like, I got to go back inside. And I went back in the temple, and a lot of people have stories like this where it's like, man, I got to get outside. Oh, I got to go back inside. So like, and then before I knew it, I don't know how much time had passed, and I started to get things got like a little challenging and hairy for a second. And I sat on the hill, and I'm just like looking out over the mountains, and the facilitator, the woman, came up the hill, and things were like starting to get weird, and I was just feeling it was just becoming a challenging experience. And she sat down next to me, and she had this purple flower, and she's like, how are you doing? And I was like, I am having a challenging experience, and I didn't expect it to happen. Like, I was feeling really good for a second there. And she's like, well, that's all right. I brought you this flower. Or she didn't even say flower. She's like, I brought you this. And at the time, I don't even know if my mind could like process flower, but it was this purple flower, and I held it like it was this talisman or like totem or something. And it was like one of the most beautiful things I'd seen, but it was so profound. I was like, how did you know that I needed this? I needed this, and I didn't know that. Like, how did you know? And she's like, I just knew. That's all. And like now I know that like that's probably right out of the like the Psychedelic Explorer's Guide. It's like, if you see somebody struggling, you bring them a gift as fast as you can. Just find a gift, that you think is pretty, and you bring that to them, and it might turn their entire thing around. And she did that for me. And it was like that. I held on to that flower until it melted in my hand. Like, I mean, literally, like it crumbled. I was sitting in a hot tub at the end of the as I was like landing, and I remember the petals were just like floating in the water, and I was like still holding the stem for dear life. And then this mist came down, and I was just like, I remember the relief of just like being kind of coming back uh, was great. But I was so grateful for like where I'd been, even though there was like some hairy stuff in the middle, which is the same as life, man. Like, it's the same as like the peak of my alcoholism was really dark and very challenging. And like the last couple years that I've had in life have been very challenging and very dark at times, like I'm sitting here today, and it's Sunday, and it's like, it's gray or whatever, but like I'm on the podcast, and like we're having fun and all this stuff. But like I still, like, I wail on my kitchen floor sometimes, and sometimes at night I get really upset, and sad about like things that have happened or the way they've went. But like, all in all, I feel more held than I've, like, I just know. I just have this knowing now, and I can't tell you where it came from. I don't know if it's, I guess the 12 steps brought me here, but I have this knowledge that, like, or this faith, I guess you'd call it, is that like I know that I'm on the path. But some days I get really frustrated, and I think that I should be somewhere else or doing something different or something more profound than I'm doing. But when I'm in the right space, I can see that everything is exactly how it's supposed to be,
Should
which
be.
is, yeah,
Yeah.
which is one of the mushrooms gave me that message too. Like,
Mm.
it was always meant to be this way. That's what they said to me. And I
Mm.
was like, it's 11:11 right now, dude. That's great. That's like a thing in my family. Wow. Yeah. And yeah.
Yeah, I think that's something that Carl Jung said once he was asked, "Do you believe in God?" And he smiled. He said, "No, I know God." And I think
That's even
that's
better.
that
Yeah.
knowledge, and for me, that's what psychedelics have given me, because
Yeah.
I kind of believed in God. I was raised in a Catholic family, in a Catholic school. So it
Yeah.
was there somewhere. But I
Yeah.
truly uh, I truly connected with higher power through psychedelics, and it's easier to
Yeah.
do a step 3 and hand over your will and your life to someone you've met, you love, and you know you're loved, and you can trust.
Oh,
And I
absolutely.
think that's certainly been my experience. And of course, we all have moments of doubts and moments where we're fundamentally very human,
Yes.
and fear kicks in.
Yeah. Yeah. Big time. Yeah. Fear, doubt, and like disappointment, all this stuff. But then, I get to another experience, or like another, just, I end up in these spots that it's like, that are profound and uh vivid, that it's like, oh yeah, of course, of course, of course. Like, that was another thing that kept coming up during like most of my ceremonies, is that just, of course, of course, of course, of course. It's like that, it was always meant to be this way, or like I'm
Yeah,
right in the right spot. Like, the mushrooms have given me a lot, and they've brought me closer to my higher power, and that's like my goal the whole time in all of this. And through that, like, I've met countless people in this program, like I said earlier, that have impacted me in ways that, like, I'm just so grateful for. And I can't imagine a life where, like, that's part of the medicine. That's even actually, that might be the biggest part of the medicine, because I wouldn't have found
mm,
my way to anything, and been able to navigate any of this stuff if it wasn't for these people.
yeah,
Like, it all makes so much sense now, like, when I think about it in that perspective. Because if I just like ran into the woods, with like totally with no knowledge or experience, or people like helping guide me, um like, PIR is a really sacred space of very experienced and intelligent people, that, like, you know uh you can find people in these rooms that are just like some of the wisest, kindest, and
hmm,
realest people, like, that I know. Like, these people aren't like uh messing around. They're not
yeah.
faking it. Like, this is real life stuff.
And also, there's no ulterior motive other than helping you recover.
Right.
And that's what surprised a lot of people from the outside world, even in AA. What do you want from me? Why are you being nice?
Right.
A lot of people find it even strange, but they don't understand that in order to recover, we need to keep what we have by giving it away.
Right.
And that's the wonderful philosophy and lineage of this fellowship.
Yeah.
We pass it to each other, and in turns, I'm sure you have impacted the life and the recovery of many people in PIR that you've met, um, and that's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
I'm conscious of the time, and there is one last question that I ask all my guests:
Yes.
is what issues are you still struggling with, or what is the one challenge in your life that you're currently working to overcome with or without psychedelics? You've touched on it,
Yeah.
but can you elaborate a little bit?
That's funny. Like, as many of these as I've listened to now, and like been in the guts of this, like, every question I like haven't expected, which is fun. Um, yeah, it's fun being on the other side. Yeah. So, like, yeah, like I said before, what I'm navigating right now is still like, I'm mourning the loss of a 10-year relationship. It was the most profound relationship of my life. I spent a third of my life partnered with somebody who's very special, and like, I love dearly, but uh navigating how to now just like be Ian, and what does Ian need? What does Ian want out of Ian's life? It's strange and difficult sometimes. but I cherish my freedom, and I trust that this is the will of the universe. And yeah, so like navigating that's been very, I wouldn't hand this path over to anybody else. Yeah, that's all I want to say about that. And then, like I said earlier, like I'm just gonna like say it. I'm navigating obsessive compulsive disorder, and it is strange and frustrating and brutal, and sometimes beautiful. Sure, like yeah, like there's it's part of me, and I'm accepting that for what it is. Like I want to say I don't hate it, but some days it's really frustrating because the way it manifests, like people will think about this stuff in, like, yeah, I check the stove sometimes. Okay. Like I do that. That's great. But like, it's a lot more of it is up here in stories of like what things could have been and what they are is very hard to accept because I think of all the ways that things could have been or could be in the future. And it's very difficult for me to come back to right here. And that's what I'm navigating right now. And just figuring out what is oh God, I did it again. My sponsor in AA. I'll be on the phone and he has this way of always like calling out things that I say over and over again. And he goes, figuring it out is not a step, dude. Like figuring it out is not a step. But because I'm always saying that, well, I just got to figure it out. But what I'm navigating, how about that? What I'm navigating right now is what's God, I don't want to say what's next for me, but where I'm navigating where I want to be, and I'm navigating who I want to be and how I want to be. And with the help of the people in these rooms, especially, I mean, PIR it's not my only fellowship, but it's the fellowship where I find my tribe. I find my people that show me that like they mirror to me what it is that I need. And it started with the medicine. It's like, how do I do this? How do I integrate this? How do I where do I go to ceremony? And how do I have the reverence and respect for these entities that and modalities that is right and good? And how now it's become, I find fellows that have the same experience, the same things as me. And they're out there, they're everywhere. And I talk to them sometimes till 3 a.m, when the time calls for it. And like, yeah, those are the things I'm navigating. And I wanted to say real quick, I forgot to say earlier, like the way that it was taught to me is that there's 5 pillars of medicine work, of ceremony.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like your setting, which everybody knows, set and setting. But they don't think about sometimes dosage, right? Intention. What am I doing here? Is a good thing to ask. And then your integration. So once we're on the other side of this, how do we reintegrate these? How do we basically the way I'm thinking about it lately is totally different. I thought it was, how do I integrate the message, that I got this message that it's all right here, or the message, like whatever message you're getting, from while you're in ceremony, how do you reintegrate that? Or how do you integrate that? It's not reintegrate. How do you integrate that into your life? But lately, the way it's manifested for me is how do I integrate from the peak experiences that I've had with and without psychedelics, I should say. How do I integrate into the monotony of day-to-day life? How that's been my path right now, and it's something. I don't know what it is, but it's something.
Yes. And again, you've answered my question before I asked. I wanted to ask if you had any word of wisdom to close, but the 5 pillars of medicine is a good one.
Yeah, I think those are crucial.
And thank you very much for coming to share your story so vulnerably with us.
Thank you.
And thank you for all your service on the podcast and in the fellowship.
Of course.
And thank you, listeners, for being with us today, and see you again very soon. Psychedelics in Recovery is a peer-led fellowship guided by anonymity, non-endorsement, and mutual respect. Thank you for listening and for placing principles before personalities.